Welcome to The Bone, the podcast that goes deeper. Here we cut through the noise and get straight to the core of the issues that matter. From real stories to raw truths, we dive deep into the conversations that shape our world and challenge our thinking. We're not afraid to dig in and get to the marrow of it all. Whether it's life, culture, or business in sports medicine, we're here to break it down raw and real. No filters, no fluff, just to the bone. With your host, Shelby Daly, we're getting to the bone. This is a clinically pressed, approved CEU podcast. Find the quiz to gain credit at clinicallypressed.org/courses. Clinically Pressed Company, making the complicated simple through results that give back. Find out more at clinicallypressed.org. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Bone, where we get to the bone on situations in athletic training. Today on the show, we're joined by Mike Weild, a retired certified athletic trainer with over 35 years of experience spanning nearly every level of the profession, from high school and colleges to professional athletics and international travel with baseball teams. Mike has also contributed to the academic side of athletic training, helping develop 2 educational programs and serving in leadership roles within state organizations. After decades of clinical practice, Mike transitioned to medical sales in 2013, where he leveraged his deep sports medicine knowledge to succeed in the business side of healthcare. In 2023, he sold his long-term home, hit the road full-time in his Class B RV, and now travels the country while continuing part-time work remotely. Known for his candid perspectives, Mike recently sparked national conversations about the challenges facing athletic trainers, particularly around advocacy, recognition, and professional growth. Today, he joins us to share his unique journey insights on the profession and reflects from life both inside and outside the athletic training world. Well, welcome to the podcast. Where in the world are you today?
Currently, I'm in the state of New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Yes, I grew up in the state, so I have a big heart for the state. So I love New Hampshire.
Good. So before we get into anything, can you share what initially drew you to athletic training and what your early years in the profession were like?
Sure, very cool start for me. I was at a small college in Ohio, and really, I think I changed my major like 4 or 5 times. I mean, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I had this dorm mate that he was constantly going over to the sports complex every day, and I started asking questions. I said, what are you doing over there? And he goes, oh, I work in this room, and we have athletes that come in, and we treat athletes for their injuries, or we tape them, rehab, things like that. I'm helping out the nurse. And again, it was a nurse that was running this room. Okay, there was no terminology, there was no athletic training, was not in the lingo. It was just a room that a nurse was treating athletes. So I said, oh, interesting. Do you think I could check it out? And he goes, yeah, sure. I'll ask her and see if you can come in. And sure enough, I was invited in, and I started to go with my friend into the complex. And in this room, there was, I think, a whirlpool in there. There was like 2 or 3 tables. I think there was a modality in there. I can't remember every little piece of equipment in there, but wasn't much. And my goodness, I just fell in love with it. I said, wow, this is interesting. I go, I really like this. And I would, ask the nurse many questions and so on. And finally, I just flat out said, I go, is there a career in this? People, is this an actual career, or is this something we just do here? And, she didn't know a lot, bless her. I mean, she's a terrific lady. And she said, well, there is a career in this. It's called athletic training. And I said, oh, interesting. I said, where, is there anywhere around here I could look more into it? And I was directed to a school, Wright State University. It's in Dayton, Ohio. And they said they have a program there. I said, interesting. Okay. And Wright State was like, I don't know, a half hour away. It wasn't that far. So I went over there and talked to the people there and found out, yes, they have a program, and I could transfer all my credits over and start this education and athletic training. That's how it all kind of started on that end. So ironically, it was called internship program back then. So it was the initial stages of the internship program, and we had to put in something like 1,800 clinical hours in, and we had to document every hour. So it was a lot of hands-on back in those days. So yes, it was education. Yes, we had our intro to athletic training 1 and 2 and modalities and all those classes, but it was really the hands-on experience educational side that really was a big thing for the internship program. So they placed me over at this high school to do X number of hours in my junior year, and really liked it over there and got along with the head athletic trainer. Ironically, the next year, a position opened up over there. And I can remember, this is back in the mid '80s, so it was a different world for this profession. Said, well, we're looking for an assistant athletic trainer. Now, bear with me here. I was going into my senior year in college, and I was being offered the assistant athletic trainer to work at a high school. And of course, it was a paid position. It wasn't volunteer, and it wasn't a lot, but it was paid. And of course, I accepted it and started my journey. And that was really technically my first job, paid job in athletic training, was the assistant athletic trainer. Now, what was my responsibility? Ironically, the only sport I didn't cover by myself, again, I'm a senior in college, was football, of course, football and wrestling. And I was covering soccer games by myself. Nobody was around me. I was the athletic trainer of the sport, and the other team didn't have anybody, so I was running both teams. Here I am, a senior. So then, and then the head athletic trainer left at the end of the year, and I was offered the head athletic trainer job at the same school. And again, I still hadn't passed my exam yet, but now I'm going to be the head athletic trainer at the school, and I haven't passed my exam. I haven't taken my exam yet. I was still in the process of kind of finishing up a few more things. I wasn't completely done after my senior year. I had a few extra nagging credits here and there, but I finished, and somewhere, I don't know, sometime during that year when I was the head athletic trainer, again, I'm covering now football games by myself, and I still haven't passed my exam yet. And but you were allowed to do that back then. And then ironically, I did pass the exam, and I left there after I realized I didn't want to stay in the high school world. I wanted to go and work and get my master's. So I left there and took a job up in Connecticut and started working on my master's. And then I was there for a year, and then this job came up just down the road. It was a small little school, Sacred Heart University. At the time, it was a Division II school. It had 8 sports, less than 100 athletes, and they were looking for their first athletic trainer. So I took the opportunity, and I said, yeah. And I was like, I don't know, I think I was making pennies back then, Then this was, 87, I think, or 88, something like that. So here I'm now, a head athletic trainer. And I haven't been that certified that long of a college. Ironically, I'll talk more about later, but I was there for 10 years. And in 10 years, we went from Division II, 8 sports, 2 were make-believe because we have to have 8 sports to be classified Division II. So they had these players playing in certain sports just so they can make up a team. And less than 100 athletes. And then when I left there in 10 years, we had over 33 sports and several hundred athletes and going Division I. So I was able to grow into this huge athletic industry. So in my first 12 years of in my profession, boy, did I learn a lot. from being by myself right away in college, right away being a head athletic trainer, still not certified yet, to the point where, I grew into this huge school that I learned all about ordering and budgeting and things that was just incredible. And then, of course, in those 10 years, and we'll kind of talk about that later, is I developed an athletic training program during that time as well. So 100% learning on the job experience that really kind of developed me where in my field.
Yeah. So between going from by yourself to a big program, you've also been in professional athletics. What are some of the biggest takeaways from this range of settings that you've been in?
I thought about that question, and I think the biggest thing that I always saw was, actually it wasn't a big thing. It's the idea that, a knee is a knee, a shoulder is a shoulder, an ankle is an ankle. And I'm treating, yes, they're at different levels from a 14-year-old athlete to a professional athlete. Their body is still the same. I mean, just more mature, of course, but you treated everything exactly the same. The only ironic thing between some of that stuff was, with the high school level, I dealt with parents. And parents can be very challenging. And I tell you, there's times where I had to convince the parents that their child couldn't play over the coach. The coach was with me, but the parent wanted their child to play for many reasons. To the point when you're in college, you're dealing directly, with the athlete and so on. And professionally, that's another world because now, you're dealing with the career. So, but yeah, that's how I would kind of look at it.
Yeah. So with developing the athletic training academic programs that you've been in and even in the clinic, so there's obviously getting the roots down of the operations, but what were you hoping to instill within the athletic training clinic or the academics to really fully develop an athletic trainer?
Sure. When I was at Sacred Heart University, I think it was a couple years in, uh, and just kind of, I don't know, observing what was out there with students and so on. I just came forward and I said, listen, what do you all think about me starting an academic program? I mean, totally from scratch. They looked at me like, huh? I go, yeah, an academic program. We can start a program very similar to the kind of program that I was involved in. Um, what do you all think of that? Well, the big thing I was able to convince right away, believe it or not, was the admissions department because they started doing inquiries. Admissions love recruiting, right? And they were getting a lot of inquiries of high school students interested in athletic training. It was incredible the numbers that they were getting. So I had them in my back pocket to the point, they were 100% behind you. I said, you can get this program going. We're 100% behind you because there's a lot of interest and we can get this going. At the same time, we're adding 5 or 6 sports every year, on top of that. They're recruiting athletes. Athletes wanted to be athletic trainers. They wanted something where they would come to the school to be an athlete, which can be an athletic trainer too, back then. So it was a nice mix back in those days. So I had them convinced, but now I had another area to convince. We had to put it somewhere, and we decided the science department. So now I had to go to the science department to tell them about athletic training. And of course, they had no clue what I was talking about, But I ironically, I had the chairman of the science department, and bless him, he believed in me right away. I mean, I don't know what it was. We connected. I mean, this guy's a biology, professor. Really didn't know much about athletics or sports, but he believed in me. And I was able to convince him to, hey, let's do this program. And he said, okay, let's do it. So the combination of I always looked at him as in a sports the way of explaining it is he was my offensive lineman. So he was able, I got behind him because, in developing a program, you got to go through a lot of restrictions, a lot of people fighting back at it. Well, he just helped me plow through all of it. And I remember a couple of times I've gotten 2 phone calls from him saying, I hate to tell you, but the program's dead. We can't do it. We're not going to be able to do it. And really sorry. And after I heard it, I'm going, no, that's not happening. And I said, so I quickly go down to his office. I said, okay, who do we need to talk to? And I was able to resurrect it twice. It was supposedly dead to bring it back up to the point where finally we got it going. I remember the first year, I think we had 6 students in there. I think 2 were really, really true students. There were 4 other ones that I was kind of dragging along. I hate to tell you, I needed to fill a classroom, but to the point where we had at one point during that time, I think I had close to 100 students in the program, and so it was very exciting back then. And I know when I'm leaving, I always wanted to move to Florida, and there was an opportunity at another school called Palm Beach Atlantic University. They were looking for somebody who developed an athletic training program at the school. I thought, well, I hate to leave the school. I hate to leave Sacred Heart. It was my bread and butter. My heart and soul was in it, and so I decided to leave and take the job down there. And but ironically, when I was working at Sacred Heart, I was wearing both hats. So I was the head athletic trainer, running around that department, and then I was a program director running that department, and that was tough doing both jobs at the same time. And when I was developing the program, putting it together, I wasn't getting a penny for it, by the way. I wasn't getting a dime. My salary was only my head athletic trainer's job. So finally they gave me a little stipend. But then when I finished my master's, because that was my original plan in the first place, to get my master's, and the school popped up on my master's thesis. They gave me the master's thesis for developing the whole athletic training program. So that was pretty cool how that all worked out. So I was able to do that and turn that all in. But and then I went to Palm Beach Atlantic and started another program from scratch. And ironically, I was their first athletic trainer. So now I'm at the second school in a row being the first athletic trainer at the school. So another program, another college I went to became the first again. So that was another cool thing that, I was able to do that twice. Sacred Heart's doing well today. They have a master's program. And, when I left Sacred Heart, they actually finally divided the two jobs. They hired a full-time academic person, and then my assistant became the head. So ironically, they finally they wouldn't do it when I was there, but they finally split the 2 in half into 2 full-time jobs, which was kind of funny. And then when I was down in Palm Beach Atlantic, I finally was able to convince them to get me a full-time academic person. So I was able to spend more time on the athletic side, and then he was spending, I still oversee the academic side, but at least I had a full-time academic person. So unfortunately, that program doesn't exist anymore because they decided not to go to the master's side, which was sad. When they made that, that's another whole topic. But when there was a lot of schools in Florida that dropped their program. There were tons of programs in Florida at one time, and I don't know, majority of them dropped it because they didn't want to move on with the master's program. So that's where that was.
Gotcha. So with your experience developing a clinic and the academic side, what are your thoughts on the current MSAT or even just the student experience curriculum, any of that stuff? What has been your observation since you've been in the trenches of building programs?
Well, my experience goes back to when I explained when I was an assistant athletic trainer, being a senior in college, and no observations. I wasn't being observed, and I was totally by myself, and I was learning in the trenches, and I was learning on the job to the point where I was very, even when I was a program director, I felt bad that I had to be a shadow everywhere for these students because I wanted them to have the experience I had to really learn on their own and go out there and do that type of position. And I felt through the years that we restricted our students so bad that, now I would at times I would like we'd be a volleyball game, and I would have the students, like my senior student, actually run the game, and I say, listen, I'm gonna go sit in the corner. I'm gonna be over there in the corner. I'm not there. Just pretend I'm not here. Just try to pretend I'm not over there, and I want you just to run this game the way that it should be run. And that's how I tried to do that the best I could legally, because you had to be under the same roof, of course, to have to give these students so much leeway to learn and not feel like, and then finally, when they finally go on their own, when they graduate, their first job is by themselves. And it's like, wow, okay, and I didn't have that. My first job was like, oh, okay, I'm just picking up what I did in college, and that was a big difference. I'm not a big fan of the master's program. I mean, education is education. I totally believe it. I think that's a given. I think we all should have the best educated athletic trainers, best educated physical therapists, chiropractors, cardiologists, you name it, orthopedics. That's a given. And I think we spend way too much time on something that could be an obvious side of things, where I have my own side when it comes to the NATA versus the APTA and the whole government affairs side. So that's kind of I could spend a whole topic on that.
Well, I do think that is a dynamic that a lot of people have been noticing is the helicopter preceptor, I think. But at the same time, not saying, I don't know if quality is the right word. Maybe engaged student is a trouble at this point. I mean, I was just on Facebook the other day and somebody had a student that was complaining to the clinical director about requiring her to be there, for the quality hands-on time. The athletic trainer had been traveling for 12 days, so the student got 12 days off. And then, because she required her to be there from Monday through Sunday for 2 weeks straight, the student was complaining to the clinical director and couldn't even talk to the preceptor. So I wonder about the professionalism of the students that are coming through. Athletic training is a lot, but I don't know how we prime students adequately of the job, expectations, responsibilities, time commitments, while not blowing them out at the same time. Do you have any thoughts on that? I'm kind of just spitballing right now, but it was interesting when you brought up the hiding in the corner and letting them kind of run the show, and you were there to support as needed. I'm not sure if students are really getting that experience. And I know when I graduated from the master's, the first year of certification was this weird feeling that I always had to check in with somebody to make sure that my rehab protocol made sense, the diagnosis, got a second opinion on it to make sure it was legitimate. Clearing somebody was really kind of that nerve-wracking experience because I didn't get to just play along when I was a student and try it out. Do you think that being in a more litigious society with suing everybody causes problems? I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there and see what your thoughts on that is.
Everything you said, you hit it right on. I think it's the same. Like I said, we had to document 1,800 clinical hours. Okay, document it. Now I can tell you, I probably put, and I'm not kidding you, I probably doubled it. I probably put 3,500 clinical hours in. I mean, I gave up after a while. I think I had so many hours because I was spending so much time in it. But I was not. Now I know the two sides of the fence. You want the students to really learn and to be themselves and be more in charge, take more responsibility, make their own decisions. But then I know then the other fence you said you hear around the nose that we are becoming a too happy country. That a student does something wrong, and which is very possible being a student, then guess what? They're going to go after. They're going to the parents, so on, are going to sue the school, and so now you got that side. So I totally get that side of things, but I think we were totally. I think there's a line to draw where yes, I had to stay under the roof, okay. So yes, I sat right in the corner. I'm not kidding you. I took a chair and I tried to hide myself as far as I could. I wasn't. I mean, I was having a hard time seeing the game. I mean, I'm not kidding. That's how I do it because I got that from myself because I put myself like I was there, but I didn't have me there. So I was there by myself. I wasn't looking around for my head athletic trainer when during a soccer game. But I knew my line, and as far as yes, you're going to be a lot more conservative. Now, here's another scenario. A student at a small school with less pressure but have a lot more experience because the student can make decisions and can do things more than you go to a big D1 school. Yes, you got to, I'm at a big D1 school, and, I'm at a football game with 80,000 people here, and what a great experience that is. Well, yeah, it's a great experience to watch the game, but you have zero responsibility. I mean, you're basically I think you might be just an aide there to a point that you can't never do anything by themselves. Sometimes you got to be at a certain level, even tape an athlete. I mean, I've seen some stories on that where, and I have to understand you're at a big Division I school, so there's going to be a lot more pressure, and these athletes are going on even today now. I mean, now they're paid athletes, and you're not going to have a sophomore, well, now it's masters, but working on them. You're going to have the head athletic trainer or the assistants working on them. So that is tough. But we went down that road, and now we're kind of stuck. And I don't think there's a comeback. And that's the same thing I think with the whole government affairs thing too, as well. I go, we've gone down this road, and now we're late to the party when it comes to our level compared to a physical therapist. I don't know if we can turn back, but I have some ideas. But that's just, but yeah, you hit it on the nose when it comes to. I've seen so many students come out. I remember they feel lost. They feel like, oh my goodness, I got to make a decision. I got to tell this coach that they can't play. I've never done that before. I've always asked, the person next to me, to make that decision. So, and now they have to make that decision. I don't
Yeah.
see that. I don't see that in the other medical professions. They're in the grind of things from the beginning, and they're making decisions. It seems like the athletic trainers put in separate decision, on that because we're a different
Yeah.
profession. Let's face it.
Well, I was working at Pennsylvania Hospital, and the residents were actually planning to go on a strike, which I thought was very interesting because they thought their hours and responsibilities were too much. And I guess it poses that question. I think all healthcare professionals are kind of feeling it, is this stretch in responsibilities or scope of practice. I mean, I can't talk about other professions, but even just for athletic trainers, we keep kind of shoving more things into the bag, which is great. But at the same time, how do you have time to really handle those basic skills of athletic training? And I think it's also a reflection on the students that are coming through, that I guess they're lacking maybe some grit. I'm glad that they're trying to set boundaries for themselves, but at the same time, you're not going to get the full experience and actually understand the profession if you're not in the trenches being involved. I mean, I feel like from when I graduated and before that, everybody was a student that got so many hours, and the professors and the clinical directors had to reel it back almost of like, hey, we need you to concentrate more on your schoolwork than getting the hands-on experience, and I feel like it's shifted. And I don't think students are necessarily lazy. I'm not sure what their motivation is and what's going through their head. I mean, I think it's all about self-promotion, but even going back to clinical sites, I feel like a lot of programs are really marketing with the fact that they have clinical sites at the Division I professional level. And I mean, I'm not sure how those contracts work out, but I feel it's the networking position for those students ultimately if they want to be in those settings. But I don't think they're getting the real experience that they need. Like you had said, I don't think a multi-million-dollar athlete is going to want that first year MSAT student working on them or even evaluating them. There's so much time constraints of getting them back out on the field, doing whatever. I mean, I feel like it's more observation at that level. And I think programs need to concentrate on the high school settings, Division 3, Division 2 clinics, where you're going to be able to get the hands-on experience, be able to try things out. There's less risk on the line. So that's what went through my head when you were talking ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, I take nothing away. You learn a lot at the high school level. I mean, like I said, a knee's a knee, a shoulder's a shoulder, an ankle's an ankle. So athletes like that, I've seen some really gruesome injuries in the high school level, and I've seen a lot of things at the high school level. I don't need to have 80,000 people in the stadium for me to learn about I had a specific experience with an injured athlete than 100 people in the stands. It had nothing to do with the level. It's the actual job itself. And probably I never worked with a college football team until Sacred Heart started. I think that was my fourth year there at Sacred Heart. So that was the first time I've ever in my life worked at a college football game. Was when it's kind of funny. I worked by myself at a college football game, and but it was the first time I ever worked, and I worked high school football, and I learned a lot there. So yeah, you're right. Division 2, Division 3, high school. That's where they should be down in the trenches. I mean, they got their own world in the Division 1 now. Division 1 is like a minor league professional organization. For most schools now. So the students ought to be down in the trenches and at high school. I know it's not. You don't have that great feel, at an 80,000 game, and you're telling your parents, hey, I'm at this big game right now, and I'm on the sideline, but, I mean, what are you there for? To feel good or to learn? And, I'd rather learn and be there and see that. So yeah, that's where people should be at. And, I'm not saying students can help and just, help the traffic go smoothly in the athletic training facilities, yeah, but not when it comes to being in the trenches. They may be at the high school or smaller schools. They can be more involved and learn more to a point that maybe the profession needs a full year. Actually, call it a full year part of their. Yes, now they're going to be certified, but they have to put in a full year, just like a residency. They have to do that before they take a full-time job. But we got the elephant in the room that's going to stop all that, and that's salary. Are you going to do all that work and all that stuff when a physical therapy assistant medium salary is higher than an athletic trainer? So I mean, what's wrong with that picture when you're going to ask these athletic trainers to do that when a PTA in a 2-year program is going to make more money than what I'm putting in? And that's where we need to start. And unfortunately, that's where we are. And I love the profession. I mean, people ask me all the time. I love athletic training. I don't regret it at all. I love the profession. Ask me about the organizations. and the state organizations and so on. I don't have a lot of nice things to say, but that's, I try to be nice, in public.
Yeah. Well, and I think I've started dripping that too of I think I don't want to add more time to the masters, but I do think there needs to be a third year of kind of the GA ship where we can really hone in on that letting go of the hand, that transition portion of you're still associated with an educational institution, but you're actually working. But, we can hit harder on some of these administrative classes, leadership, some of the soft skills that get shoved into the cracks in the 2-year masters. But, you're out there, you're doing the bread and butter skills that should be in an athletic training program that you have enough reps of. But then you get into those administrative portions where we're not always allowed into those meetings of the department when you're a student, because usually you're in class most of the time. Doing the budget with a real actual athletic training room. Mine was fictitious, so I had no idea what I was getting into when I was trying to make a budget, doing ordering supplies, all that type of stuff. And, we take the GA ship again and stipend them or help them with tuition and give them a stipend. I don't know, I think that's going to be the next evolution of this, because I don't know, without any real standardized prereqs before getting into the masters, it's kind of a mosh posh of people in 2 years that are trying to figure out being healthcare providers. And I don't think that's fair either.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's face it, look at the PTA, okay? The PTA has a 2-year program. I don't care how you spend it. It's a 2-year program. You go to a 2-year college, and they get drilled for 2 years on flat out education, okay? And they get all kinds of these classes in these two years together. Well, they come out, they're going to be under the APTA. They're going to be under the lobbyists when we got in the APTA, and now they have a lot more responsibilities than an ATC has, and they just did a 2-year program. So, like I said, you got the elephant in the room, where yes, you're asking the athletic training students to do all this work, and then do another year, which is I'll go back to the initial side. We had to put 1,800 hours of documented hours, into the outside of the classroom. And I tell you what, I learned more outside the classroom than I ever learned in sitting in the classroom. Yeah, I got the book open, we read and so on, but boy, I saw everything, in those 1,800 plus hours. That's where I learned. So you got to learn in that year. When you close the book, which you never really close the book, as far as your education wise, but still, I'm saying that from a master's point, you close the book and now you got to go to work. And at that year, but why am I doing this? And if I'm when my medium salary is less than somebody, what used to bother me is I had athletic trainers that go back and get their PTA. They literally they became an ATC, but they went back to school to get their PTA. It's like going backwards, but not in the real world. It's not. It is in the education world, but not in the real world. Only because I used to work with I used to have a lot of owners that were PT ATCs, or there were DC ATCs and so on, and most of them would tell me I would hire an ATC in a heartbeat over a PT, but I can't. I can't, because I can leave a PTA by themselves, and I'm able to make money off that PTA. I can't with ATC. I can't let them by themselves, and that's just bad. I mean, when people have to go, and then yes, we're losing a lot of good athletic trainers. Why I went in sales, I had enough. I literally had enough, and I could see that I could make a lot more money in sales than I could as an ATC. That's really what was the bottom line figure. But we've had a lot of people done that. I know on the women's side, women want to raise a family and they can't raise a family and be an ATC. And
Mm-hmm.
we lost some great women athletic trainers because they couldn't do both. And it's the same because we're allowed this to happen. And yeah, it's been a pet peeve of mine for many years. I said I love the profession. I love it. Students, parents will want me to talk to the students and so on. It's great. But I tell them, I go, well, what you ought to be doing is get involved with government affairs, get involved in the whole tax side of things, because your future, unfortunately, is on the Hill and at the Capitol,
Mm-hmm.
not in the classroom. Because they're going to make the decisions about how much clout that you have. Boy, I started doing the numbers. If you ever want to start looking at all the numbers involved with how much the APTA has raised and how much the NATA, the PACs have raised, and it's kind of embarrassing our profession how much our money goes into the lobbyists and into the to the Hill where those are decisions that are being made. Um, that's I think I don't know if you know, but like 6% of the NATA membership goes into government affairs, goes into the whole lobbying side of things. That's not a lot. 6%, and that doesn't include. You got to remember people making decisions on the Hill. They don't get all 6%. I don't know what exactly percentage they get, because then you got administrative costs of traveling and all administrative stuff involved with government affairs. So that's all under the 6%. With APTA has a separate line. I think they're like 10 to 15% of their membership is with government affairs and things like that. I could be off on some of it, but that's the administrative side. But then they have their whole PAC. 100% of their PAC, which is over $1 million, goes to the lawmakers directly.
Mm-hmm.
That's not administrative cost. So when all that money goes in the lobbyists, and they're saying like, hey, we want to have more clout here, and as far as reimbursement and so on. Guess what? They're going to vote for the PT over the ACC because we're only giving them pennies, and unfortunately, that's what we're seeing it. So that's the elephant in the room. We can talk education all day long, going the master's route. I still shake my head on that one, but why we don't put more money into, more than 6% or so on. Somebody just maybe give me a reason why it's not 7%, why it's not 20% or 30% goes into government affairs. That money should be going that way. We spend. I'm not putting. Yes, we need education, but I think that's a given. I mean, we have to do the CEUs. We're still being educated. I mean, shame on you as an athletic trainer. You don't want to be the best you can possibly be. Just like a chiropractor, just like a physical therapist, just an orthopedic, you want to be the best. So you want to keep learning and learning and learning to be the best. That should be a given. But why are you gonna bust your butt and try to learn so much education where your median salary is lower than a PTA? So,
Yeah.
that's what bothers me, and that will always bother me. I gave my time as far as in the state organization. I was a former vice president of a state organization. I was a board member, committee members. I was a webmaster for like many years. And being a webmaster, I was involved with every committee. I mean, webmasters I was learning everything of that. So, I don't know. I just not a big fan of the organizations because I just feel like they went the wrong direction on that. Somewhere down the line, I don't know. Now granted, we have I think 45,000 members. NATA is 45,000 members, and then there's over 100,000 in APTA. So yeah, they got twice as many members as we do. I get that part. We'll have a hard time matching. But how many orthopedics do we work with? How many medical supply companies we work with? There's a lot of companies that have some deep pockets that could really help the athletic trainers organization out and help them get started and help them be part of the same level and help them, be able to. Why aren't they? So but anyway, that's my bad. I could spend an hour on government affairs, but
Well, so I mean, I wanted to ask you about compensation. How do we address that? But I'm going to go more down this advocacy route. So, being at the state level. So, I mean, yes, I think that the NATA could do a better job. I think they're trying to fix it. Who knows? I think there's a lot of transparency issues ultimately of what they're fully doing. I don't think that they are adequately honest about when you want to ask questions and get real answers, because I've ran into it, especially with the podcast. Where could an athletic trainer make the most change politically? I keep saying that at the state level is where you should really try to funnel your energies, because that's where you're going to make the biggest difference in the short amount of time. With the NATA, you're moving a boulder up a very steep hill, and I'm not sure if that's where energy should be pushed. I mean, there are still some benefits to being part of your national organization ultimately, but at the same time, I think the finger gets wagged at the national level and not at the state level sometimes. Being in California, and there's still not licensure after the 8 years that I was there certified, and they've just only gotten registration. I'm not sure what is happening in California, and I don't think that the individual athletic trainers are actually actively putting themselves out in the community in places that they don't belong. Going to Chamber of Commerce, going to city council meetings, getting their face more out there in front of these people that are voting on these certain topics, creating that network, that friendship, the understanding. Being in Alaska, I've gone and met with Senator Sullivan multiple times, and every time I have to tell him what an athletic trainer is, even though he's in the military and they have the H2F program, he's still, it's still kind of new to him every time I tell him, but he's interested in it. So I think it's just dripping on that rock, but we're just not having enough drips simultaneously and in different areas. So what are your thoughts from being a leader in your state level? How do we get better out in the community to be able to make these decisions to hopefully, downhill help with compensation and all that stuff?
yes, public relations is great. You can go and spend a day and have lunch on the hill of the capitals, the state capitals. Shake hands with all the lawmakers and smile for the camera and we can do all of that good stuff and re-educate the lawmaker every time you walk in their office, because they're going to forget who we are. But you know what? They're not going to forget who we are. All of a sudden they see the lobbyists with money coming in and saying, athletic trainers have given X number of dollars to your campaign, have given X number of dollars, and as far as changing this bill. All of a sudden they're going to really like athletic trainers. I hate to be blunt there. I hate to be,
So
that's the way it
buying
is,
them
but
off, basically.
money. Well, technically, if you that lobbyist is not bribery, but let's face it, lobbyist is a legal bribery. I know that kind of contradicts itself, but that's what lobbyist is. Lobbyist is about persuading bills, persuading lawmakers to vote yes on one bill or vote no on the other. That's really what it comes down to. That's it. Every bill. Every bill, you're going to have these big lobbies. Big pharma. Big pharma's got one of the largest, lobbyists, money going in anywhere. You talk to chiropractors, DCs, and you talk to MDs, and DCs will say the same thing. Their lobbyist money doesn't match the MDs, and it's all about money. Like I said, I go back to, yes, you're absolutely right. The state level is, because that's where the licensure bills are made. There's not a national bill. I mean, we're not a Medicare provider. Okay, so I mean, on a national level, right there alone, we are not a medical provider for Medicare. Until that happens, I don't think that we're not going anywhere, because if Medicare doesn't recognize us, then insurance companies are not going to recognize us, because insurance companies will follow Medicare. Yes, there's CPT codes all over the place, and yes, you can throw them in there, and some states will say, yeah, we get a few bucks from some of them, and you hear some good stories. That's great, but as a consistency level, no. Bottom line is, I hate to say it, but if your Alaska congressperson is going to know athletic training a lot better, if all of a sudden he sees more money on his desk from lobbyists saying that we need to pass this bill, yeah, definitely, we definitely need to pass this bill, and I think, I hate to say this, but several years ago, the NATA invited the president of APTA to speak at our conference at the convention. And first of all, I thought that was mistake number one. But then I'm in that meeting, and the APTA president gets up and speaks to all of us. And I literally wanted to throw up at the meeting, because he gets up there, and of course he's going to say, oh, we love athletic trainers are great, we support them, and yada, 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 yada. I mean, he gave a great speech. But when it comes down to it, what are their lobbyists? They're trying to keep us out. Bottom line is, they're trying to keep us out. They don't want us involved. And so if we open up our license bill, I bet you the APTA is going to be one of the first ones in there, trying to stop it. And and they're going to put more money into it to keep us from being a Medicare provider. Things like that. And I thought it was just an insult why we invited the APTA president to get up there and speak. And I spoke to a lot of athletic trainers that day, and all of them thought, like, what the heck is he doing here? And why we invited him. And I just think you're right. The state level is where it is, but the NATA needs to distribute the money down into the state, so we have more PAC money. Now, I know the APTA does things differently. They're 100% of their money from their PAC goes directly to lobbyists and campaign funds. Okay, 100% of their PAC. But the NATA, well, and none of their they don't have a budget that goes directly to the lawmakers, but they have administration money. So they'll have over $1 million. The reason why we use the word that they say 6% on the NATA level, that 6% of our dues money goes to government affairs, to lobbyists, and things like that. And reason why they say that is for tax purposes. That's 100% for tax purposes, because technically we're not supposed to deduct 6% of our dues, because that goes to the government and lobbyists, and you're not allowed to deduct from your taxes. That money goes there. Okay, that's the reason why they just disclose that. But the 501c nonprofit organizations really don't have to submit to tell you how much. Like, we don't have an exact figure how much NATA really gives. Obviously, I've heard numbers over 200,000, maybe 215,000. I've heard all kinds of numbers in that ballpark, but nothing's really concrete, because they really don't have to disclose that. Technically, I think there is a breakdown in, I'm using the terminology wrong maybe, but the 990 form, whatever, in the private, in the nonprofit, you're supposed to break it down, but you don't have to break it down to lobbyists. You can call it government affairs. You can call it general information. You don't know really the exact dollars that go in there. Where we do, APTA does disclose that, because they do 100% with their PAC. And that's why 1.2 million, 1.3 million, and so on, goes directly to lobbyists. And our PAC of any PA is maybe it's 100,000. I don't know. I've heard maybe less than 100,000. I've heard some really bad numbers as far as actual people contributing towards it. I've heard under 1,000 actually people contribute towards the PAC. I mean, I've heard some really, really embarrassing numbers. That's where it is. I'm sorry. That's
Yeah.
where it all is right there. PAC goes to campaign funds, and then you have your lobbyist funds that go towards bills, and that's where the money's to go. I mean, enough's enough. So for us to catch up and get part and be, relate to the party. You keep saying that, and yes, we have less than half as many members. I get that, and you're going to say, well, the median salary for a physical therapist is over 100,000. Of course, they can contribute more, right? So you're going to say that, and which yes, I'm not going to disagree with that. So what's the way around it? Well, we need to go to where we spend a lot of money with. We spend a lot of money with medical companies, medical supply companies. We do a lot of referrals with orthopedics and things with the medical side. They should help us, and increase our PAC. Maybe do a lot more specific fundraisers. I mean, some of these pro athletic trainers, I love them to death. I'm friends with a lot of them. I have been. Man, they could get some big time athletes to sign something and auction it off to make a lot of money. And we used to do these auctions at the state level, and man, we get nothing. I mean, people be donating like, I don't know. I think we did come. I mean, the money that we made on it was pennies, and that was going to our PAC. Really, that's not even going to buy a lawmaker a drink. Also, I mean, to change their mind. That mind's not going to change their mind. So and what happened in the Buffalo Bills game? I mean, that's probably nobody talks about that anymore. I mean, now he's back and playing. But yeah, that was huge news, and the athletic trainer's name was all over the place and so on, and man, that was great public relations. And I have to laugh sometimes. We always have the great month of March. Athletic training month. That's the national month. And I'm on, and you know what I don't know if you know what I did on LinkedIn. I post something every day. Every day. If you ever want to go back and look at every one of my posts in the month of March, all was it 30 days, 31 days, whatever in March. Sorry. I post every day. Every day I post something. I was making things up. I was creating different charts. I was creating different images and so on. But I was doing something every day, posting something. So one of them I posted. If you mentioned the Army and that whole thing when they let go all those athletic trainers and that thing was going on, I post something on there, and I was really surprised. I never had anything this big. I had 41,000 impressions on LinkedIn. I had, oh my God, I can't tell you how many likes and so on. It was one of the biggest things I haven't come anything close to that. But I was putting numbers down. I was putting the numbers down on there and what was going on with all that. And then I posted something else after that. I got like half. I think I got 21,000 impressions on that post. But it was all based on numbers. And I honestly I've been thinking about it because I have some time now. I travel a lot and I have downtime, kind of semi-retired. But I think I want to start a dialogue on LinkedIn and read and bring it back up again and all these numbers and start talking. And I want to bring out physical therapists in the discussion. So I'm bringing them in the discussion. Now I have 17,000 connections on LinkedIn, and athletic trainers, physical therapists, chiropractors. I mean, I have veterinarians, I have podiatrists and everything, but I have a lot of connections. Doesn't mean everyone's viewing. I get that part, but I still have a lot of connections. I think the most you can ever have is 30,000. I think so. I'm still ways to go, but I did a numbers thing on AI. I guess I'm in the 1 percentile of connections that I have on LinkedIn. So there's not many people have 17,000. But anyways, besides that, I'm thinking of starting a dialogue on that and bring it up with numbers again and have people. I want to hear it. I want to hear people come back and say, no, that's not true. Okay, good. I want to hear that. So what is true then? What are the true numbers? What are you seeing? And things like that. And but like I said, going back to it, I think bottom line, money talks. And we can, like I said, we can go and shake hands and take some great pictures with the lawmakers. We look great. I love some of the state organizations. They put a nice picture up on there, sitting all with the lawmaker on the stairs of the Capitol, and boy, they look good. Wow, that's super. That's great public relations. That lawmaker goes back in there and goes, well, what's the next? What's my next appointment? You know, I mean, it's like the appointment's over now, and he's looking at who's the next one. And that's the real world.
Make it memorable.
One time, I had the dean of students one time. He sprained his ankle. This is a true story. I had a dean of students who overseed. I'm sorry, not dean of students. Who was the dean of the education side, and he had a big cloud in the whole education side. He hurt his ankle really bad, so I told him he needs to come in the athletic training room and facility and we'll treat him. And he did. He was very faithful, and he came in. He sat there one time, his foot in the whirlpool, and he saw the craziness that was going on in the facility. And he takes me aside. He goes, holy crap. He goes, this place is crazy. He goes, is this normal? I go, yeah, this is my normal day, sir. This is what goes on in here every day. He goes, oh my God, I had no idea this was going on in here. I mean, I always walk by here and, you know, certain mornings or evenings, and I see nobody in there. I go, well, this is obviously the busiest time, and so on. He started to totally change his whole way of thinking, and helping me a little bit more on some decisions, because he physically saw with his own eyes what was going on. You know, I didn't have to obviously pay him like lobby money, but I'm saying the idea that, so he saw it. Maybe some of these political figures, they'll have no clue what goes on. They don't know the busyness of what goes. Like I'll never forget my parents and my family came to one of my games one time, and it was an away game, and we were in the hometown area, and they all came to the game. They sat in the stands, and I'm sitting on the bench, and it was a basketball game, and what game was over and everything else, and one of my sisters said to me, "Goes, you don't do anything. You just sit there. I go, you got the best job ever. You don't do anything. What do you do? That's your job."
Yeah.
You know, and I just laughed. I'm saying, yeah. I go, see, that's what people see. They don't know what goes on in the trenches. They don't know. They don't see me in the back, you know, getting everybody all ready. They don't see the normal.
That's it for today's episode of To the Bone. I hope we've sparked some new thoughts, challenged your perspectives, or simply reminded you to dig a little deeper. Remember, life isn't just about what's on the surface. Sometimes you've got to cut deeper and get to the bone of what really matters. To the Bone podcast is a product of Daily LLC. It's hosted and produced by Shelby Daly, ATC, and Randy Daly. No clinical decision-making should be based solely on one source. While care is taken to ensure accuracy, factual errors can be present. For more on the show, visit www.tothebonepodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Get involved in the conversation. You can find us at www.tothebonepodcast.com. Drop us topic suggestions or be a potential guest. We're all about connecting with you, our listeners. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep cutting deep.